Hello, this is Joachim, Christopher, and Sandra and Tobias, and we want to analyze Business Philosophy by Marina Levica. And first of all, we want to take a look at the narrative point of view, and the narrator in the short story is a first-person narrator that tells the story from a limited omniscient point of view, which can be seen in the following quote. I mean, a punter doesn't want to screw a girlie with a black eye, does he? And this type of narrator that is told from a limited omniscient point of view makes the narrator unreliable and subjective.
And characterization of the main characters. First of all, we have the narrator, who is mentally weak and suffers from illnesses, and he justifies his lack of moral by these weaknesses and these illnesses. For example, when he has to get something done that he doesn't want really to do, he sends someone to do it, and then he justifies it by saying that, for example, he had a toe gout, or he had a headache, or something like that. And this gout could very well resemble him as a person. Then we have Katja, who is cunning, as said by the narrator, because when she escapes along with someone else, the other one is brought back because she goes to the police. But Katja, she's cunning because she knows that the police is corrupt and will bring her back. And finally, we have the human rights worker that helps Katja, and by the narrator, she's characterized as a bitch and a hairy lesbian. And this is, of course, because her line of work is exactly the opposite of what the narrator is trying to achieve with his business.
Yes, and then we have the language and the style of writing, and the story makes use of a lot of direct speak in form of dialogues. And we also often hear the main character speak to the readers directly. And he uses this direct speak in the short story to explain his philosophy and to express what he thinks about different subjects, such as the UN fighter. And as previously mentioned, this kind of language in form of dialogues makes the language very unreliable and subjective. And furthermore, the language is very blaming, and the protagonist blames the girls if they're beat up, which can be seen in the following code. So it has to be something serious to warrant a beating. Most girlies you don't have a problem with. And the way he calls the prostitutes girlies is also very condescending and provocative to the reader, and he kind of objectifies the girls as seen in this following quote. Sibylle, does she think there's a shortage of waitresses in the Balkans? So she decided to run back to her mummy. And the style of writing is also highly provocative, as mentioned, since the short story is written in such a nonchalant style, and the protagonist regards what we perceive as moral and ethical problems as everyday small pedantic matters. And he always feels sorry for himself and compares the abuse of the girlies to his own problems, like the gout.
And then we have the setting. In the text, we see the social and physical setting. First of all, we have the physical setting, which is placed in the Balkans. Then we have the social setting, within we see a social contrast. We have the girls who are placed low in the social hierarchy. They all get abused, and the social status is then pretty low. The men who come to the Balkans are from a higher social level. We hear about the policemen, judges, and politicians who all attend to the same low district. We know that their overall purpose is to have sex with these women who constantly get abused and oppressed. In this we see the social setting as a contrast between the two social levels. As an example of this, we have this one. Well, the police brought the Ukraine back, but the other one, Katja, she's cunning, she doesn't go to the police. And in this, we see how the police use their forces in a way that should not be legal. They take the women who escape back to the Balkans, even though they should be able to find another solution.
And as just mentioned, this as a conflict, there is this moral conflict with all the higher members of society and how they condone and abuse these poor girls, as illustrated in this following quote. They were some of the big names around town: judges, politicians, police, so you have to keep them happy. As we clearly see here, all the bodies of power, and here of course speaking of the judicial, the executive and the legislative power, they're all represented here by the judge, the policeman and the politician. and they condone this violation of human rights, and therefore this entire society is in a moral conflict with these human rights.
And then we have the message of the story. And Marina Lewycka's message is to spread awareness upon the human rights, which is described in Article 4. Marina Lewicka has used a quite different way to spread her message in the story. First of all, she is quite provocative in her form of writing, which we think helps clarify her message. And second of all, she has chosen to tell a story from another point of view than the person whose human rights is actually violated. She has chosen the main character in the story to be a man who violates the human rights described in Article 4, instead of a person whose human rights is violated. This is a quite rare way to frame a text, which purpose is to spread awareness upon a problem by portraying it in such an ignorant manner as the narrator does. But it seems to work for Marina Lewicka, and we think that she is successful in clarifying and spreading her message.